Okay. All right. So we're going to wait here a little bit to get people to join up. And it's going to be shared on Casey Metaphysical's virtual fair on Facebook. So if you guys are in the group right now or whatever, you'll have also a link below this. There is a Casey Metaphysical virtual fair that will have my product in a gallery, as well as a bunch of other vendors' products in a gallery. There's going to be readers and energy workers in this gallery section that you can go to. And basically, this is the last day for the fair. So we're going to see if we can drum up a little bit more action for the fair. Right now, any purchase up until the end of today is going to have a 25% discount from RuneWorks. So if you buy something from me, you'll have a nice substantial chunk of change taken off of your purchase. Just got done with one purchase. It was supposed to be like a $48 purchase. They saved, what, $12, $13, something like that. So, yeah, this is going to be, I hope it's going to be a little bit more bouncy, a little bit more successful than what it has been. So, but I'm looking around the room right now, and Allison can pan around. We have objects that we usually have in our festival. Go ahead and take a look down here in the in the mess of wires that we have. There's a couple of Cernuno shrines that they're freshly done. I mean, I just did those, and they can come apart, so they're easy to move around and transfer. And then behind Allison, there is my wand selection. Go ahead and pan to the wands. We've got all of our wands sitting out, so if anybody wants to grab some decent wands, all of those are individually listed on the website, on the page here. And they're also individually listed on the Casey Metaphysical Virtual Fair in my gallery. So you can take a look at that. You can take a look at all the jewelry we have. I have other artwork on there. So, yeah. What time have we got right now? Is it getting close to... It's 3 o'clock right now? Okay. So, and I just saw that Sylvia had joined up, so she probably already shared this onto the KC Metaphysical Vendors site. So, we're going to get started with our workshop, which is magical tools. This is going to be a Western Hermetic look of magical tools. So there will be some difference of opinions as to what goes where and why. I'm going to give you the reasoning for the Hermetic usage of those tools in their correspondences. And what we mean by tools, we're talking about the elemental tools used to create magic and used to create other devices that magicians and commonly some witches will use. Now, if Allison could stand up here and scan over me, I'm going to roll off to the side. This is my working live altar that I am utilizing right now. Has everything set up for common stuff. There's other things that can usually go onto an altar, but this is usually it. So I'm going to go right down the way. We have our goddess candle, salt dish, water dish, chalice, This is a nice little container for my salt. And then we have our ancestor affectation, spirit candle. Behind the spirit candle there is a black candle that I usually use for the shadow work on the shadow self. Around the pentacle you will see 4 elemental candles. And then as we pan over here, we have our incense burner, chime, and wand, athame, and my magical defense, the demon powder. And then over in the corner is the god candle and symbol. So, and then there's other things that you can add on to the altar, but that's usually generally the main stuff in an altar. All right, go ahead and sit down. We'll get going with that. So, the first thing is that the elemental tools are divided into a masculine aspect and a feminine aspect. And each one has an explanation into their other corresponding elemental structures. So we're going to get started with the feminine concept, and of course we're going to start that off with the chalice. The chalice is a tool normally used for the concept of the womb of the mother. And also embodies the bloodline of magic from one person to another. So a lot of conceptual stuff, Christianity using the chalice, turning turning the wine into the blood of Christ, is very much in line with the same conceptual usage for passing magical power between the master and the student, or the witch and the apprentice, and so forth and so forth. So they would fill the vessel with wine, create some magic around it, imbibe the wine, and in therefore ingesting the magical abilities that they had practiced. There is also a ceremonial ritual called the Great Rite, which combines a couple of magical tools into creating the final culmination of all of the ceremony of magic. It's usually done on a religious high holiday. So this is to be a consecrated tool. You only use the chalice for a magical property after you're done consecrating it. You don't use it for your normal dinnerware after that. It can be made out of a wide variety of materials. This is silver-plated chalice, which is desperately in need of silver plating once again. I also have a glass chalice that I have hand etched with my own, can you see that in there? Okay. With my own symbols. And, this is kind of more of the common variety of chalice that you'll see. You'll also see a ceramic style chalice. That's another common form. As long as you're looking for something that's going to be handmade, the color appropriation would probably be in the blue range. Things like that. And sometimes you can find a potter who will actually engrave or embellish the chalice with symbols that you want to have on it. I have seen stone chalices. They're very expensive. You can usually find onyx or some cheaper form of agatized material would work very well. I have seen some later versions of bowls or cups or chalices that have been made out of stone, real nice stone like fluorite or lapis lazuli. Those can get quite expensive. So those are more rare. You have seen some that have been made out of resin. Those are not really chalices that I condone on using because of the type of material, but it is acceptable. It can be used. Moving on, then we have our altar pentacle. Now, our altar pentacle takes up the center of the altar and is usually the... Oh, I'll bring it out. I'll bring it. I have others to look at as well. It takes up the center of the altar like a pedestal. It is the protection for the altar, so the pentagram is a symbol of defense, magical protection and defense. So that takes up your central portion. Anything that you do or create magical device-wise is usually placed on the pentacle as a form. And there are a lot of different varieties of pentacles that can be used. This particular one is called Solomon's Seal, and it does have extra symbolic embellishments on there. And I also have in my sales as well other types. This is a Celtic knot tree of life pentacle. And then you have another one that has the alphabet of the Magi written around it. This is a very standard form of pentacle. Now, pentacles originally were made out of wax, and that was to protect the witch from being detected, because they would carve their pentacle out of candle wax in the form of a disc that had a pentacle in there. And if somebody were to try to find their craft, so they could blame them for witchery or devil worshipping or whatever, they could take that wax disc and toss it into their fire, and it would melt and disappear. The symbol would go away, and they would be protected that way. And that was usually the only thing that had a pentacle symbol engraved on it, was the disc. Everything else was pretty much laid out as being normal. I'm going to straighten myself out again. And like I said, there are a lot of different formations of different types of pentacles, and you can see a lot of varieties on my my group page down below, as well as in the vendor gallery in Casey Metaphysical Fair. Now, one person had asked me, why are we using the pentagram as a symbol of defense? Well, historically speaking, this has been used as a symbol of defense for thousands of years. You go back to the Middle East 3,500 years ago, in the region of Caledonia. What is it? I'm getting a. Last night I was having a discussion about pronunciation of the region, and I always called it the Chaldees River. I could be wrong. It could be the Chaldees River. The region of the Chaldees River is the first place that they had found the symbol of the pentagram. They had used it to burn the symbol on cattle to mark them as being their cattle, so that they had identification. Plus, it was a magical defense, so that anybody trying to take their cattle, they would see the pentagram and leave it alone, because they knew that that was marked for defense. And you see this all over the place nowadays, on the badge of police officers. Usually it is a pentagram. Sometimes you see a hexagram as well on sheriffs. On the overhead, you drive across the Midwest and you look at barns. Right over the barn door, there's usually a pentagram, a star, 5-pointed star around there. That wasn't a Texas thing. That was a symbol, an old symbol of defense for people's goods and properties. So, one of the reasons why, if you look into sacred geometry of the pentacle, you'll discover that it has intrinsic properties of earth and nature in it. So I suggest that you go and look up and do a little bit of studying on that. There's actually a cartoon from Walt Disney back in the 50s, maybe 60s, showing, what is it? Is it Donald Duck? The white duck is Donald Duck, the black duck is Daffy Duck. I can't ever keep that differentiation. So Donald Duck was this little, they had this little cartoon where Donald Duck went into ancient Greece and they did this whole sacred geometry study of the pentacle, which I thought was very unique for them to use that symbol. But it showed its aspects to the golden ratio and a whole bunch of other fun little things. And Walt Disney did it, so who knew? So those are the feminine aspects. This is a symbol of water, and this is a symbol of earth. Moving over to the other side, we have our masculine symbols. And of course, our masculine symbols are going to be very masculine. We're going to start off with the athame. And the athame is usually a double-bladed steel dagger. You have seen bone or wood or stone sometimes, but I'll go into the reasons why steel it would be a thought to be used. The athame has a very unique story behind it, and also there is a concept that the athame could be placed in the position of the element of air or the position of the element of fire. If you think it's in the position of fire because this is forged, you're wrong. There would be other astrological differences that would place it into the element of fire. But originally and hermetically, we were going to go and call this a tool of the air. And the reasoning why this is a tool of the air is associated with the transfer of knowledge. You speak, people hear, they learn. And it took a lot of process to make steel. It took somebody who knew the right minerals and where to find them. It took another person who could extract those minerals from the rock and create the billet. And then it took another person who had the capability and understanding of taking that material and pounding it into a shape. That took time, and it took a lot of language and a lot of conversation between a lot of people. So this is a symbol of a transfer of knowledge. So when somebody asks, what the esoteric property of the athame is, now you know. A lot of the times, the athame is used for cutting circles in creating a magical altar space. So before you create a magical device, or you do some sort of spell or summoning or whatever, you want to defend and cleanse and purify your area as much as possible. The athame defines the border in which, your regular material mundane world gets transferred into something that is more of a magical space. And this is the tool that does that. This tool also is what is coupled with the chalice and the great rite. The athame has a lot of other capabilities and uses for them, just as much as the wand. I have a couple of different wands here. I have a bunch of wands behind Allison as well. The wand is the final 4 of the consecrated tools. The wand is probably one of the more enigmatic of the tools, because you see a lot of usage of the tool in pictures and depictions of drama and movie, fantasy, things like that. But you rarely see a witch or a magician actually going to the wand, because they're uncomfortable in its actual application sometimes. And I'm going to diffuse that actual application. Now, description of the wand. We want the tool to be an extension of the property of the magician or the witch. Michelangelo had a concept of artistic representation of the parts of man. So he knew that the bottom of the nose equal to the bottom of the ear, the top of the eyebrows to the top of the ear. The length of your arm spread was equal to your height. There were proportions to man. And they wanted the tool to represent a similar proportion. So the proportion is equal to the inside of the crook of your elbow to the tip of your middle finger, which you can see right there. This one is actually proportioned to me. The type of wood is not really a huge concern. However, druids have 9 sacred woods that they can use, and also they have other different types of magical properties for different types of woods. Usually you'll see stones adorning the wand. It's not necessary, but it's there. This one is a double-tipped wand that has crystals on both ends, but this one is just got a single crystal. And you'll see some Solomons. Now, what you want to consider with the wand being is a similarity to the baton that a orchestra leader would use in conducting an orchestra. Magic is your orchestra. You are conducting energy from one direction into your space. So this is a baton that would be used for a somatic gesture that brings in your energy into your direction. One thing that I commonly tell people is if you want to have an interesting experience with the wand, couple wand usage with meditative Tai Chi, and you will see a specific type of energy flow when you bring up energy in Tai Chi and you bring it down, and you're using the baton to actually direct that energy, that Chi force. So that's it really for the 4 tools. There are other tools that are on the altar that are called non-consecrated tools. And we've got 20 minutes in, and I've already gone through all of the tools. the 4 consecrated tools. But I can also describe other non-consecrated items that are on the altar. And we will go into that combination. The next thing that would probably be a concern for the witch or magician would be the creation of your circle. You need to purify things. And in that, you would be looking at creating holy water and incense. So the non-consecrated tools would probably be your holy water dish and your salt dish. These are representations for earth and water. You're seeing a repetition pattern in its correspondences, and that's fine. You consecrate the salt, consecrate the water, add the salt to the water, purify your circle. Go over to your incense. The incense holder, and sometimes we will actually even go in as far as doing charcoal resin. And this is a pack of copal resin. And this is a silver-plated dish that I have some sand in here. And I'll pour the sand in there, and then I could put a charcoal cake in that, and then add the resin, and then that fumes out a lot of incense. You need the element of fire, which you would use your spirit candle. You consecrate your spirit candle. Then you consecrate the incense itself. Then you light the incense. And then you go around the circle and bless the circle as you did with the holy water. Those are the combinations. Now you have fire and air, you have water and earth in representation of the spirit candle, incense, holy water, and salt. And then the other important aspects of an altar would probably be your masculine and feminine God representations. On my altar, I have a generalistic sundial moon symbol with candles, and the candles are decked out with moons and solar, depending upon their side. You can also use statuary, and depending upon what your selection of deities would be, or patrons that you would commonly summon for yourself, that is what you would probably select for the corners of your altar.
John is asking, how do you consecrate your tools?
How do you consecrate your tools? That's interesting. So, if we go back and look at one source, one Gardnerian source, a fictional book written by Sire, which was Gerald Gardner before he could actually take the name up and put that into book writing. There was witch laws in England up until, I think, the 50s. And he wrote a book called High Magic's Aid. And in that book, this witch was being saved in order to help this boy regain his kingdom. And she had to go back and get her tools after they ran from what was, probably assumed to be a Spanish Inquisition type of priesthood that was coming after them. And she said, really, the only thing I need is my athame. With this tool, it can be created. And that's what she said. And I was assuming that she would use a style of blade, a magical blade, that was handed down from generation to generation to carve her wand and to make the altar pentacle, and she would probably procure a cup to use as a chalice. So the initial source then would probably be the athame. This would probably be the first tool that you would consecrate, and then you would work on the others. What you would do is you would set up a simple circle using your fingers and using what small little tools. Like I said, the water and salt dish and the incense burner do not have to be consecrated. So therefore, you can set up a rudimentary altar with a spirit candle and your salt and water dish and bring a tool into usage, which would be the athame. Since this is a tool in the air, representing air, you would consecrate your circle, summon some sort of patron that you would want to have in circle, and then you bring your tool to the east, which east would be the representation of air. Consecrate it with holy water, cleanse it with smoke, hold it up to the east, present the tool to that quarter, to that element. State the fact that it is going to be used as a ceremonial tool for that representation, and from then on it cannot be used for anything else. It cannot be used for cutting, cannot be used for anything that you would use in the kitchen for it. And then you honor it and bring it back to the altar. It's not a very tough thing. Or if you have a tradition where you have a student and a mentor, the mentor would probably gift you with your athame and show you how they consecrate it, and then they go around and they do the same thing for all of your other tools as well. So there is quite a few steps that you can go out and see how a consecrated altar tool can be consecrated. That would be one way of doing that. Did I answer that properly for him? Did I get a thumbs up? Okay. So God and Goddess candle, salt, water, spirit candle. This is probably one of the first things that you should be looking at and getting for your altar. This is a representation of your spirit present in the altar. The altar is a microcosm of the understanding of the magician or the witch. Everything that you understand magically is represented on the altar. This is representative of your spirit. The black candle, it would be represented of your shadow self. So you can also get a black candle. This is not consecrated, but it is cleansed. And in doing so, you'll find that certain traditions have specific oils that they use for their magical usage. They carve a symbol onto the front of the symbol, on front of the candle that represents a portion of them, and then on the back of the candle, they will take the oil from the center and push the energy out, and take the oil from the center and push the energy out from the bottom, and that basically cleanses the candle for usage. And then all of the other candles on the altar is lit from the spirit candle, meaning your energy is creating all of these other little finer points that are going on the altar. The other types of candles, besides the God and Goddess candle and the spirit candle and the shadow self candle, would probably be the elemental candles. And I have some colored tea lights that I use in a colored quarter representation. North would represent earth, east would represent air, south would represent fire, and west would represent water. Each of those has a guardian aspect. Each of them have an archangel attached to them. They have a type of season and a time of day. There's this is when we start getting into correspondences, like really heavy into correspondences. Whenever we do a circle, we summon a quarter, and then those quarters provide a key to that energy that we draw upon using our wand. So if I want to do a divination, I would summon some energy from the element of air and bring it into the altar and use it to cast a spell for divination before I actually do a tarot card reading or a rune casting. That would be a major effect for something that I want to do in the future. And outside of that, everything else is kind of tertiary. You start having your own little flavors of stuff on the altar, like placing crystals in certain areas. You have your ancestor affectation. That could be a candle. I have a gray candle down here that's used for spirit candles for your ancestors. The alchemy skull, of course, would definitely represent a form of ancestor protection. You know, the skull represents the symbol of who has come before you, your knowledge, and the people who have you've revered, that you have learned from. That would be there. The bell chime would be used for denoting portions of ceremony. Your procession would be chimed in, your recession would be chimed in, your magical working would be chimed in. Also, summoning spirits or alerting fae or things like that would be done using the chime. So that does have a minor magical component as well. And finally, Book of Shadows or Knowledge. Okay, now we're shooting through this pretty darn quick. Your Book of Shadows, or your spell book, or your tome, things that you have written down, like the way you do ceremony, your different summonings, how you call upon the god and goddess, how you have specific types of prayers, self-empowerments, meditations, things like that. Those are all written down for you to reflect upon and repeat. Your capability of repeating in the same pattern and in the same way builds up energy over a period of time. So if you do your ceremony exactly the same way each and every time, you have a pre-established knowledge in your head and how to perform it. You take it from book to knowledge, from knowledge to heart, and then you're casting a circle without having to take much effort into it at that point in time. And then things progress magically from there because you don't have to stop and actually think about what you're doing. It just automatically manifests. And then you can concentrate on other properties of magic besides starting your circle. I think this is going to be a short workshop unless we have any other questions, in case we have anybody else that has anything that they would like to know. I will help out with that. I don't know how many people we have here.
Vilma says hi.
Oh, hi Vilma. She didn't realize that she was partaking. That's cool.
We have about a dozen people.
About a dozen people in. That's about normally what I usually get in a class anyway when I go to KC Metaphysical, the physical portion of the show. What I can just say then is, yes, RuneWorks is closing down. I will be taking commissions. Most of the stuff that I have is that is closing out right now. You can grab at a really good price. I suggest that you do that. So this is my shameless plug time. Yes, question?
Rachel says hi. Jen Fayline says she's learning a lot.
Oh, good, good.
Vilma's asking what about talismans?
Okay, so talismans would be considered a magical device. The tools are what creates the magical device. So if I were to have, one sec. Let's say if I had something that I would like to enchant, like a ring, and I want to put some specific type of energy into it, or some spell, something that I can call up later, I would take the device, put it on my pentacle, set up a circle, consecrate everything, cleanse the ring, and then create a spell that calls upon the energy that I'd want to put into this new device. Then it becomes a talisman of sorts. It contains power or energy to be used later. So it is kind of sort of consecrated, but it is more a manifest of the energies that you use with consecrated tools. Does that explain it? I'll wait for a thumbs up. Okay. Huh? You can say it. Okay. Okay. So, what time is it?
3:38.
3:38. That's like 7 minutes shy. What else can I say? So one of the things that I didn't cover over here was the demon powder. This is not something, this is highly specialized. It's not something that everybody has. This is something that was a creation of my late friend Vengeance and I had come up with. It is a sorcerer's blend. You could call it a sorcerer's version of holy water. And this is used specifically for demonic evil entities that you want to defend against. And this is a combination of sabbatical ash with black salt. And you use a mortar and pestle to grind it up into a fine powder that is very, very soft and heavily refined. And basically you just take a little tiny dab on your fingertip and you put it on door handles, on vents, on window sashes, sometimes on people as well, to afford them a temporary protection. And that helps cleanse and set up space. So you cleanse your area using incense, sage, a witch's broom, what have you, to push energy out, leaving a window open so that things can escape. And then you seal your area up using the demon powder, and then you create your ceremonial circle. And that is kind of like a finer point. It's not considered necessary. Some people can use crystals. I know a lot of people who would use black quartz or selenite or something like that. They would put around their circle to use as a form of protection. And I think that's about it. The only other thing that I really didn't cover in non-consecrated tools would be the cauldron. And the cauldron is more of a witch's vessel. It's not used a lot in high magic, but if you have a spell that is considered what is called a petitionary spell, which means you will write it down and you will burn said paper. It's really convenient to have something to put that burnable in that won't catch the rest of your beautiful altar on fire. And that would come with the cauldron. Most cauldrons are made of cast iron. I do have a clay pot, or not clay, but a ceramic cauldron. And a ceramic cauldron can have a burnable placed inside of it as well without any damage. And you can find ceramic cauldrons larger than some of your cast iron ones. There's other usages for the cauldron. You can create a type of chemical, alchemical fire using Epsom salt and alcohol to create a type of effect flame for certain spells. You can also use the cauldron as a wishing well. You fill it up with holy water and toss a coin in for a spell. There's a wide variety of things that you can use a cauldron for. But like I said, most of that is more used for witches than it would be used for high magicians. But I always carry one just in case. I guess that's probably going to be it. I think we're gonna. Oh, got a question.
Vilma is asking, can you show your items for sale again, or where would somebody go to find what items you do have for sale right now?
Oh, yes. So at KC Metaphysical's virtual fair, there is gallery pictures. You go on the fair that is going on right now. So there'll be an event page for it. Each of the vendors will have their own photo. So there's going to be a gallery, and you'll see RuneWorks sign labeled there. That's my gallery display. You click on that, and right on the sidebar in the comments section is a picture of every single one of my items that is for sale right now. I think I have a few of them that are already marked sold, but you can go down the list, take a look at which items that I have. I think I have like 150 some odd items in that gallery that is for sale. They're all 25% off right now. So those pentacles that I showed you, normally they're $45 to $60. They are 25% off of that price. The wands that I had showed you, this is mine, but I have another two that are over on the rack. They're similar to this. They're $60, $65. They're 25% off. So you can go over and find a wand as well. On my group page, RuneWorks group, the big picture across the front is going to say closed, going out of business, but you can still make purchases through there. I have individual galleries separated into subjects of what is for sale. And you can take a look through all of those. You can see all my jewelry, you can see all my artwork, you can see my altar tools, and later on when I get done, I will be selling a big crystal grid that is a big table, 19.5 by 19.5, 10 inches tall, that has a flip top that you can store all of your crystals inside of. So that's where you can find it right now, and it'll go on until it's gone. I think I have it slated to close down in July. I might keep it open a little bit longer. Plus I have my display items. All of my display racks are for sale. All of my table coverings, all of that stuff that I had used to set up RuneWorks, all of that is for sale as well. So if you're a vendor and you want a good deal on a display, I can get you a good display. So I hope that helps. I think we are done with the class. I think we're going to let this trail off just a little bit. If there's any other questions, that's fine. if you have any questions about me closing down the shop, I'll answer those as well. It's 3:46 right now, so I think we're going to probably, I don't know what Sylvia wanted me to do to kind of trail this into the next workshop. So I'm kind of looking for a little bit of direction on that. Other than that, I think we're good. Lots of thank yous. I appreciate that. I will still be teaching classes. I will still be out there in the community doing things after RuneWorks closes up. Like I said, you can always come to me for commission work for special projects. Building altars. I actually made this altar. It's going out to a gentleman who wanted this double level altar. It's made with a 1970s foyer bench. And that one, I really enjoyed making that sucker. It has a nice altar space on the top, plus you have all of this storage down in the bottom for all of your other stuff that could be used on an altar. I can do things like that. On the more mundane side, I can actually build just about anything out of wood. So, you know, bed frames, libraries, kitchen, dining room tables, computer desks, and pretty much anything like that. If you need to have any woodworking done, that's my mainstream goal, is to just be a wood crafter. So I started a woodworking page up called Garage 81, and that will be my just woodworking, non-magical stuff. Anything that is not magical is going to be there. So I'm trying to go for a little bit wider audience than that, and maybe that might help with keeping me employed. that's the big thing, is trying to keep me employed. So I think that's going to be it. I think we're going to cut the video off. I appreciate everybody for coming. Support local, even though we were going through this crisis together. Make sure everybody has enough. And we'll talk to you later.